If you feel like the older that you get, the harder it is to make friends, or if you feel like every time that you start growing, it's as if your circle gets smaller, maybe it's already small, you barely even had a circle and it just disappeared when you started to focus on yourself. This isn't a coincidence. I want to talk about all things regarding friendships. Specifically, after you're 20, things start to really shift and change in the friendship world altogether. I mean, you're already dealing with so many changes in your own personal life, and then you have this other layer of dealing with friendships and things changing. I mean, you go from seeing your friends every day at like school and high school, and then suddenly it's so hard to even have a friend to meet up with for coffee. With every phase of personal growth, I noticed that my circle gets smaller and smaller, and even now to the point where the people that I thought would be in my life forever and just have this really tight-knit bond with, even that has shifted. And it's really heartbreaking, and it's hard to make sense out of it at first, because you're like, what is happening? Things are looking better in my life. I'm doing well, or, I feel happier with this part of my life. And suddenly my friendships are just gone and silent and really weird. We're going to dive into all of this today. But hi friends, if this is your first time meeting me, my name is Krizia. I'm on a mission to helping you level up your life, glow up from the inside and out, because I personally started my glow up journey last year. I got laid off from my job. I was dealing with major grief, family loss of loved ones, and a whole identity shift and transformation of switching careers, switching my business, closing my business, finding myself again. So if this is a journey that you resonate with, definitely hit subscribe and join the community. And if you enjoy this video, please give it a thumbs up. Now let's get back to the video. Why do friendships feel so difficult? Let's talk about that first. I was listening to this podcast episode by Mel Robbins. She had an episode about friendships, and I want to reference some of the things that she talked about, which got me thinking about all of the things of friendships in my life. So she talks about friendships boiling down to three things that affect our friendships the most. Is number one, proximity. When we're younger, especially like when we're kids or when we're in high school, we are in close proximity to all of our friends. We live across the street from our friends. Our neighbors are our friends. Our parents are coordinating birthday gatherings for us when we're kids. So we're constantly just having basically friendships handed to us. We don't have to necessarily work for them, because it's all pretty much being handled for us, especially when we're young, because, our parents are throwing our birthday parties, they're inviting friends over for play dates. They're doing all these things for us that we actually don't even notice what's going on behind the scenes. All we know is that we see our friends often. We see our neighbors often. We see the people that we go to school with often. They're really close in proximity. And that definitely, I can say, makes a big difference, because all the kids that I went to school with were in my neighborhood. And so we'd play at each other's houses. We'd play outside, we'd ride our bikes, we'd do a ton of things together because we were so close to each other. Now that's obviously so different in adulthood, because you're not necessarily close to your friends anymore. And it gets even harder when your friends live in a different city, different state, different country. And, distance really does affect how you see people. And I live in a big city. I live in LA now, and I can definitely vouch for that being true, because it can be really isolating. If you live on the other side of town, it's really difficult to make plans with someone, because we're all busy, we're all going to work. And then on top of that, who wants to sit in traffic for like 2 hours for a coffee? As much as we want to see each other, it just takes up more time and energy to meet up. So proximity is number one. The second thing that she talks about is timeline. We're all on the same timeline with our friends when we're younger. When we're in elementary school through high school, we're all experiencing similar life experiences. We are going through breakups, first love, we're going through similar situations, similar heartbreaks, similar life milestones. Maybe we play sports together, so we're doing the same things. Maybe we are studying in the same class, we have the same teacher. All of these things are happening on the same timeline between us and our friends. We're all going through the same type of emotional journey. We're experiencing similar life situations. Like even just being able to vent about our parents, I would argue that we were all dealing with similar situations. Of course, it's going to be slightly different, but we're all experiencing very similar things in our life. And then as we get older, what happens is people start to get married, have kids, and then take on different careers. Some of us might be unemployed while the other person is getting promoted at a law firm. Everyone starts to scatter. It's just going to inevitably create this sort of distance in values, because our lives are different now on different timelines. And it's not to say that you can't have friends who are married and have kids if you don't, but it changes things. Like, we can't deny that. That is why we seek friendships as we get older who are on similar timelines to us, are doing similar things, have similar hobbies, interests, maybe not exactly the same, but we are aspiring to have friendships that we can relate to in this current era of our lives, right? And that's been one thing that I think that I've struggled with too, is because I don't have kids. And a lot of people my age are already married, have kids, and I'm still in this like playful part of my life where I'm enjoying other things, and that's okay. None of them are wrong. It just creates friction. That's what happened. So to put this into perspective, after doing some research, I found that it takes 50 hours to move from acquaintance to a friend. 50 hours. Okay. Think of 50 coffee dates to make an acquaintance an actual friend. And that's just a casual friend. Okay. And then it takes 200 hours to build a close friendship. 200 hours. That's a lot of time to spend with someone to create a close friendship. It doesn't happen overnight. It's going to take time. And then the third point she talks about is, what energy are you bringing into the friendship? This one really hit home for me because, I mean, there's a lot more context that she provided, which if you want to listen to the episode, I highly recommend you go listen to it. But I'm going to summarize my takeaway. What kind of energy are you bringing into the friendship? And I think this takes a certain level of self-awareness to understand, because if you're not emotionally mature enough to accept that you could potentially be bringing weird energy, awkward energy, jealous energy, whatever energy, if you're not at a place emotionally to accept that you are part of that and you feel like a victim and everything and everyone is happening to you, like, I'm a good friend, I'm a good person, it's them, then you probably won't understand this one on the deeper level that I think it was meant to be understood. The kind of energy you bring to a friendship is so important, right? Because you might have a friend that is a fun friend, right? You go out with, you have fun with them, but you wouldn't necessarily call them for life advice for, right? Or you have your other friend who's maybe more of like a professional friend who gives you work advice, someone you look up to, but necessarily you won't call for going out to celebrate a milestone, right? So different friendships have different energies, but it's important to ask yourself, what energy am I contributing to this friendship? It's easy to sit there and say that you've been the best friend, but have you? When was the last time you picked up the phone to call a friend just to say hi? How are you? How are you doing? Checking in. Because a lot of times, just because we're not technically doing something wrong doesn't mean that you're being a great friend. It takes energy on both ends. So if you stop reaching out to someone and you never hear from them again, you were bringing all the energy to that friendship. If you can be aware of this, you can show up better and more intentionally in your friendships and in the friendship with yourself, which is the most important one. Oftentimes, I feel like what happens too as you get older is you sometimes don't really catch up as often as you used to, right? Because we're all busy, but maybe you go on social media and you see something and it makes you feel a certain way, but you don't actually reach out to clarify anything. You don't actually reach out to confirm if what you're feeling is true. You just kind of scroll and run with it. And then you hold on to this resentment. And then you hold on to this weird feeling of whatever it is that you saw. Maybe it was a caption that triggered you. Maybe it was they went out to a dinner and didn't invite you, and you just kind of assumed that they didn't invite you. But maybe what happens is, as we get older, I feel like we start to assume more than we clarify. And that all plays a part in the energy that you bring to the friendship, because when you see them, it's going to kind of feel awkward. And if you make it awkward, which you likely will, because you haven't communicated or expressed how you feel, and you just kind of like have this weird energy now. So energy, very important. But I do feel like that is the most important point, because a lot of people skip that over. The next thing I want to talk about is, so as we start growing and as we start putting ourselves first, I noticed this first-handedly because in the past year, I started a glow up journey from inside a glow up to the outside glow up. And I can tell you one thing, as you start to put yourself first, you start to have less friends. And honestly, I feel like I have felt the loneliest in my life when I was surrounded by the most people. And the reason why that is, I believe, is when we are not whole within ourselves and we don't validate ourselves, we seek validation from outside sources, from people, from our careers, from our everything on the outside of us. And when you seek that validation, whether knowingly or not, it could be subconscious, you signal a certain frequency. It's almost like a desperate feeling, and people sense that. And I feel like you attract a similar energy. So you're constantly wanting to be around a lot of people, surrounded by big groups, a lot of acquaintances, very small talk situations, because you haven't learned how to go deep within yourself yet. So your friendships are a reflection of the relationship you have with yourself. And I realized this the hard way too, because there was a time when I was so lonely, but I knew so many people. I was seeking these friendships so desperately that I was trying to fill a void by just meeting a ton of people and being like, oh, they're nice. Like, let me just be friends with them. Let me invite them out for dinner and have coffee with them. But I was not selective with my energy at all. I was receiving a projection of that. It's so much better to be alone than be surrounded by the wrong people. I started rebuilding that relationship with myself. So my advice to you is, if you are in a place where you feel like you don't have deep quality connections in your life right now, it probably just means you need to revisit the relationship with yourself. Your time will come. Your time will come. Everyone's timeline is going to look different. So just because you're in your late 20s or even in your 30s or beyond and you don't have those deep friendships yet, it doesn't mean that it's over and you'll never have friends, but it does mean this is your time to revisit the relationship with yourself. Start doing things. Don't wait for the right people to come in your life to start living your life. It's the opposite. When you start living your life and validating your own experience without the need for anyone else, you will attract other whole people, and you will actually be able to show up as a way better, more mature friend. At the end of the day, it's okay to accept that friendships will fade away. Friendships come in seasons. Not everybody is meant to come with you on every single level of your glow up. Once I started to rebuild that relationship with myself and realized that, wow, I am actually amazing on my own, and I can treat myself to nice dinners by myself. I can go on trips by myself. I can do everything by myself. So now when I eventually do meet those friendships that align with who I am in this version now, it will be that much more fulfilling, because I don't need you, but I want you in my life. There's a very big difference. When you don't need someone or something, but you want it, it makes it that much more freeing, because you detach from needing it. You detach from that codependency. You don't need it, but you want it. You're willing to work for it. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And honestly, there's no better freeing feeling in the world. So in this last part, I want to leave you with some tips, because you're like probably thinking, well, now what? I'm aware of why friendships have become harder as I've gotten older, but like, how can I change this? So whatever you do, don't stay stuck in any kind of resentment. Even if you had a bad fallout with someone, forgive them for yourself. And I don't mean forgiving them means excusing their behaviors if anyone's ever done anything wrong to you. Forgive yourself for what you didn't know in the past, and what you did in the past, didn't do, whatever it is. If you don't forgive, you basically attach your energy to the other person that you have resentment towards. And you don't want to be attached to their energy. So cut the cord. Detach from any kind of negative source of energy and learn to move on. What I find helpful is visualizing the friendships that you do want. Right now, I'm in an era where I can't wait to meet the girlfriends that I know that are out there, that are waiting for the similar type of friendship, that I can talk about dreams with, and businesses and travel and have fun with, and just celebrate our moments together and not feel like it's a competition, not feel weird or afraid to communicate when we feel a certain way. I feel like it's already happening just by even visualizing it. So not just who they are, but like, what is their presence like, and how do they make you feel when you're around them, or simply just how do you feel when you call them? Think about the feeling of it, and then become the version of you that those people would be drawn to. And this isn't about like seeking the validation or trying to earn it, but just know that you also have to do your part to step into the higher version of yourself that's going to have these type of friendships. So it's more about stepping into your highest version. Are you willing to be open? Are you willing to be vulnerable and communicate? I think we sometimes underestimate communication. A lot of us, nobody wants to admit that we're not communicating, but all of us are not communicating. I'm gonna close this by saying friendship isn't about having dozens of people around you. It's about having few who get you. Keep showing up with intention. You know, be the person that reaches out to just say, hey, was thinking of you, hope you're doing well. I would love to hear your thoughts on friendships and adulting and friendships altogether. If you have any experiences, as always, leave them in the comments below. If you were tapped into this conversation, leave a comment down below and say friendship so I know that you watched it and you made it to the end. Don't forget to subscribe and like this video, and honestly share this with someone who is going through something similar. If you know that they're going through something, it would mean the world to help get this message out, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.